let's go ahead and get started with the third part of our PySimpleGUI tutorials. What we're going to do today is we're going to work on creating more complex user interfaces. So in our last tutorials, we just had some pretty simple windows where you just enter some data and you get some output. We didn't really do a lot of complex stuff. We only had text inputs. What we're going to do today is we're going to start working on a project that we're going to continue through the next few tutorials to illustrate a variety of concepts. What we're going to do is we're going to create a flight reservation system. It's not anywhere on the level of a real flight reservation system. It's not hooked up to the internet for one, but we can do a few things with this program. You can enter your name. You can enter your passport number. It's going to enter something there. Gender. You can enter dates and times. So right here, we're just going to choose a day. So our time and date of departure, time and date of arrival. We can't change the times in here, but we can just go ahead and change that. We can change this to like 53 or something if we want to. And then we can choose our destination. So we can choose from a list. And then once we do that, we can submit the data and see what's been submitted. So I have all this information. I'm going to click reserve ticket. And right here, I get this message that says flight booked, my name, my passport number, my gender, my departure and arrival time, and my destination, which is Beijing. We have this button as well. We're not going to do anything with that in this tutorial, but we will in the next tutorial. We'll use this to see a list of reservations that we've made. So let's get to it. We're going to put this here on the side, so you guys can kind of see so I can connect the code to the user interface right here, and you guys can see how what we're doing here directly translates to this user interface right here, to this window. So let's go ahead and get started. As usual, we're going to do import PySimpleGUI as SG. And I kind of wanted to do something different, so I decided that we'll use a different theme today. Normally we have dark amber. We're going to use black today. So you've got black. And cool. Okay, that's our theme. And now let's work on our layout. So our layout is going to be significantly more complex than it was before, because we're going to specify all of these different inputs in our layout. So if you remember, our layout is a two-dimensional array that we put into the window. To illustrate that, let's go ahead and let's just write some code. So the first thing we're going to do right here is we're going to create two just text inputs. So layout equals that. So we make our outer array and then our inner array. So our first one's just going to be a text input to get the name. So sg.text. We have a label, enter full name, comma. So this was our label, and now we're going to actually create the form field, which is sd.input key equals name. Cool. Equals true, and then size equals 21. So this is one of the more simpler inputs, but let's just kind of review how this works and what we're doing. So right here, we've got our label. So that's enter full name right here. This is our input. So this input is going to be referring to this right here. Our key is going to be the variable we use down in our loop to access whatever we typed in here. I'll show you how that's going to work later on. We have size, which means that you can type in 20 characters and it's only going to be one row tall. So we're only going to have one row and you can type in 20 characters in here. That's the size, that's the length that's been given. And then we have do not clear true. So what this means is that when we click reserve ticket and we reserve the information, when we submit the information, it doesn't disappear from this window. If we didn't have this, as soon as we click this button, all of this would disappear and we'd have to start over. Well, not really start over, we just have to put the information over again. So next, enter your passport number. This one is going to be pretty much the same thing, but I'll just go ahead and type it out. All right, so sg.text. Enter your passport number. sg.input. Our key is going to be passport number. We're going to have do not clear true again. And this one's going to be a little bit smaller because passport numbers aren't as many characters. It's going to be 10, 1. So still only one row high, but we're going to allow 10 characters to be entered. All right. So that should be pretty straightforward. We've done that before. What we're going to do now is we're going to move on to something called a radio button. So radio buttons are, you've definitely all seen radio buttons before. They're these buttons right here. Or they're actually really not buttons, but they're more like checkboxes, right? So you can kind of click in one or the other, and then you can make a choice using these. So this actually is, in my opinion, simpler than creating this text input. Or at least there's less code. Let's get down to it, and let's go ahead and create the radio buttons. So we've got sg.radio, and we want the label to be male. So the first one's going to be for males, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give both of these buttons a group name. So we're going to put them in the same group. What that means is that if you click one of these, if you choose one of these options in the group, you can't choose any of the others. Now there are ways to allow people to choose multiple options, but for our purposes, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to make it part of a group called radio, and then we're going to give it key equals name, or equals male in this case. And again, we're going to use this when we're going to use this down in our loop or down our other code, and we're trying to access the value of these radio buttons. But in general, radio buttons will return a Boolean. So for example, if someone selected male right here, then in our code, it would return values male, or this variable would be true, and female would be false. So that's our first radio button, and then let's do the female button, sg.radio. Again, our label is going to be female. And then we're going to have, so it's going to be part of the same group. What did I type? Group radio. And then this is going to be its own variable. So key equals female. So if you don't quite understand these keys, we'll get to that later. So don't worry, that'll be coming up when we actually access the data that we've input on this user interface. So I'll just make that just to be consistent. Okay, so these are our radio buttons. This is our male button right here, and this is our female button right here. Like I said, not much code, pretty straightforward. Let's move on. So what is slightly more complex is date of departure and date of arrival. Basically what's happening is we're clicking on this button, it's opening up a calendar, and here we're choosing our desired date, and it's basically taking what we enter here and then putting it into this input box right here. So these two things are separate things. We're getting some information here using our calendar pop-up right here, and we're storing that in this input right here. So let's see what that looks like. All right, so we're gonna have SG input, because remember the first thing we have is just a form field. So SG input, and this one's gonna look a little bit different in some ways and same in other ways. So key, departure, again, this is how we're going to access the data that has been input into this field. Key departure, and then size, it's going to be about 21, just to make sure that we have enough space. What did we do wrong here? Oh, okay. Well. Okay, let's do a, so you've got key, departure, size 21. Okay. Let's move on. See what's wrong with size here. Ah, I forgot the equal sign. It's the little things. Okay, so that's just gonna be this right up here. So what we're creating right here is this one right here. So that's what we're creating at this moment. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create this whole date of departure mess right here. So we're going to have sg.calendar button. And remember, it was written date of departure on the button. So date of departure is going to be our label for that button. And then close when date chosen true equals when date chosen equals true. And this one is kind of a long piece of code right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to have close when date chosen, then we're going to have target equals departure. So the reason we have this target equals departure is to make sure that whatever we choose right here gets stored in this input right here. All right. So we put target departure right here, and we typed in departure because our key for our input for our form was departure. So looking back right here, looking back at our form, our key for this one was departure. That's why the target of this one, that's why the target here is also departure. So that's the connection right there between the two. All right. Let's move on. Okay. Then we have location 0, 0. Which actually just puts it at location 0, 0 on the screen. So that's why it kind of weirdly, again, equals. So by location 0, 0, we mean, right, okay, we mean that when we click date of departure, it opens up right here, which is location 0, 0 on the screen. So that's why we've got that. Let's exit out of that. And we've got one more. No title bar equals false. It's not that important. It just means that we have a title bar for our calendar when we open it up. Okay, so that's date of departure. I guess maybe one that we didn't talk about was close when date chosen. So all that means is that when we click date of departure and we choose a date, that calendar goes away. That closes. Close when date chosen. All right, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for date of arrival. The code is essentially identical, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy paste it from my already completed version of the code right here. Right. The only difference is that our key is different. We've got arrival right here. Our label is different, and our target is different but matches up again to the key on the input, the key on the form field. So let's just make sure our commas are in order. Let's go over here. Okay, cool. All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and just do that, just to make it a bit more readable. That may or may not work. We'll see if that throws an error later. Okay, so far in our app, we've gotten down to here. Now we want to choose our destination from a list of different destinations. So we're going to use something called a list box. And let's go ahead and talk about how that's going to work. So right here, we're creating another array, sg.listBox. It's a box with a list. That's why it's called list box. And then we're going to enter some values. And these values are going to be in the form of an array. And that's going to be what is displayed in our list box. So we've got Havana, Moscow, Beijing. Messing with the quotes right here. Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, Damascus, and Sana'a. That's the capital of Yemen. Okay, so we've got an array right here of different cities, different strings. It's an array of strings. So just so you can see how that matches up, that's these values right here. So Havana, Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, and Damascus. And actually this one, if you scroll down right here, ooh, I forgot Tripoli. There we go. So those are our values. We're not done yet though. We need to add some other data. We're going to say size equals 40. And what this means, so the 40 refers to how wide this is right here. So 40 is this length right here. We don't really need 40, but we're doing that just because it looks kind of nice. And 5 refers to how many columns high this is. So this is only actually 5 columns high, so 5 values high. That's why we need to scroll. That's why we need to scroll down, because we actually have 7 values. We have 7 values, but this is only 5 values tall, so we get the scroll bar right here. And this is probably because it's on a Mac, but there's this weird white space here. That there's probably a way to get rid of it. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's just a cosmetic thing. Our next attribute of this list box is going to be select mode equals single. And what this means is you can only choose one city at a time. So you can only choose one value in this list box at a time. There's other possibilities here. If you're interested in what those possibilities are, you'll have to Google it and look at the documentation for PySimpleGUI. So that's select mode. And then, like always, in order to access this data, we're going to have key. So whatever the user chooses, we're going to be able to access that in destination. Unlike some of the others, which return strings, like so, for example, if we type in the name, later we can get the value that was typed in as a string. This is going to return an array. It's going to return an array of one value because we can only choose one at a time. So we've got that. Okay. Again, let's see if I can do that just so that you guys can see everything in one place. And that's actually pretty much it. The only thing we've got left are a few buttons So our reserve ticket button, and you guys have created buttons before. This should be pretty easy at this point. So let's just say sg dot reserve button, or sorry, reserve ticket. sg dot button reserve ticket. sg dot button C reservations. And then sg.exit, which pretty much does what you think it does. So, going back to the app, these buttons match up here. And one thing also to remember is that every single one of these arrays inside inside the outer array matches up to a line. So this is the first line, this is the second line, this is the third line, fourth line, fifth line, sixth line, and seventh line. So even if you want to put multiple things on the same line, you can do that. Just put them in the same array like this. Like for example, right here, we had an input, and then we also had the calendar button both. And they're on the same line because they're in the same array here. All right, cool. So we're gonna close this for a second. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get this working. So we're just gonna say, this again should be pretty straightforward. We've done this a couple of times. Window equals sg.window. Привет, airlines. So this is going to be the name of our window, and then our layout variable is going to go right here. And we've got this right here, probably because we got rid of we have our bracket down here. And our bracket is only for layout. Okay, so now we're good. Okay, that's window. And then, like we did in our previous example, we're going to use the event loop. So the event loop is where it's continually running. It's an infinite loop, and every time it's checking for new events. So if someone clicked on something, and new values. So something entered something. If something entered, someone entered something different. So while true, event values equals window.read. And then we're going to have an if statement, if event in sg.win closed or exit, and this exit just matches up to this one right here. So if any of these events are seen to happen, then we're going to break the loop, and then we're going to go ahead and close the window, window.close. So whenever we break this loop, that's when it's over. And we go straight to window.close and just close the thing. So we're going to do something slightly different. Before we didn't really go through this methodology, but what we can do is we can capture events, and then we can do things based on those events. To make that less abstract, if someone clicks on a button, whenever that event happens, we can do something as a result. So here's an example: elif event equals reserve ticket. So if you notice right here, reserve ticket. The name of the button is reserve ticket, so that's what we're going to put down right here. So whenever someone clicks reserve ticket, whatever code happens here will execute. In this case, we just want a pop-up. So let's just do sg.popup, and then let's just output the name, and let's just say ticket reserved for now. let's say ticket reserved, and then the name of the user. So remember, we're going to do, so right here for our user input, we have a key of name. Let's close this out just so you can see everything. We have a key of name right here, and that's matching up to, let's run this again. So this field right here, this input right here is matching up right here, and there's a key of name. So that means that if we want to get the value that's in this input right up here, we need to do values name. Values name. So values, and then you can see the connection right here. All right. Let's also print out the destination just for fun, and for me to show you what that looks like. So we'll print out values name, we'll print out, and then we'll print out the destination. So it's going to be values destination. But like I said, it's going to return an array. And because we're only allowing one option, it's going to be an array of one value. So that's what that's going to look like. So right here we have the key destination, and that's matching up to this. So whatever we enter, whatever we select here, will get stored in destination, and it'll be the first value, index 0, in an array, or in an array. So let's go ahead and this should be ready to go. So let's go ahead and run this and see what this looks like. Exit this out, and then let's run this instead and see what happens. I think we'll probably get some kind of error, but let's see. Unhashable type list. What could that be? SG window, previous airlines, layout. Interesting. So there's clearly something wrong with layout, because that's the only list that's on this line. Let's do a bit of troubleshooting and see what the problem might be. I have a feeling, let's do that. That might not have been something that that Python wanted to see. Let's save that. Let's give that a try. Still something wrong. Does it take a minute to take a look at this code and see what the problem might be? Got this. Oh, this looks good up here. Layout. Element key. Okay. What I'm doing right now actually is I'm comparing it to what the code is supposed to look like. Okay, let's just go ahead and check our, I guess we didn't fix this one, did we? Maybe that's part of the problem, maybe that's not. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, we've still got the same problem. Just go ahead and make sure that all our arrays are the way they should be. So it's going to be like that. Okay, we've got this one, Let's go through and see if there's anything that's interesting. Okay, that works. This box, text. Just make sure that all of these are correct. Again, this is the error that's given, so it's got to be something wrong in this particular line. And the only array in this line is layout. So we've got sg.window, that looks good. Privyet Airlines, there's something wrong with that. It's just got to be layout. Interesting. Oh, okay. I think I found out what it is. This one right here. I made an array when it shouldn't have had an array. Cool. All right, that's what it is. Okay. Cannot unpack non-iterable input object. Interesting. So again, that's from Windows, it's from window.read. So you've got something wrong with one of our input objects. What could that be? Width height equals element size. Cannot unpack non-iterable input object. Let's go see if there's any other errors here. Might have something to do with size, potentially. With the way that size was created. That's good. Text size. Interesting. Is that not the problem? So we've got SG text. Problem with parentheses. That's what it was. Let's give that another try. Okay, there we go, finally. All right, cool. Okay, so really right here in our code, we're just printing out their name and the destination. So right now we don't really have any validation, like there's no required values. We'll get to that in another tutorial. So we're just gonna go ahead and put these in and then click reserve ticket. String object is not callable. Interesting. Got another error here as soon as we SG, so it's got to be in this line right here. That's what that's showing us. So SG.when closed, event in, if event in. Okay. So actually, interestingly, this right here is something called a tuple. It's not an array, where really arrays are lists in Python, but it's a different type of data structure that cannot be changed in the same way as arrays can, or lists. Really, it can't be changed. It's something called immutable. But that's not terribly important right now. That was the mistake. We forgot the in right here. All right, so let's give that another try. Hit play, and then, okay. So we're gonna type in the name, and then Moscow. And we've got a myth and Moscow right here. Ticket reserved, a myth, Moscow. Okay. So basically right here, we were able to print out the name and print out the destination. So remember the destination came from right here. So it came from our input, our list box input. And then the name came from right up here where we input our name. One other problematic value would be the Boolean. And the Boolean would be our male and female radio buttons. So what we can do is how we can access these is we can get value, we can just get value male or value female, right? That's how we access these two. So for example, if we, well, I'm just going to type this here and I'm just going to run the previous version. So right here, if we select male, then value male will end up being true. That'll return as a Boolean, which is true. If we select female, that'll return as a Boolean, which is true. If we select female, then male will be false. If we select male, then female will be false. So the way we can do this, the quick and easy way to do this, is we can say, we'll create an empty variable called gender, okay? And then we'll say if values male, meaning it's true, then gender equals male. Otherwise, we can say gender equals female. Because if male right here is true, then that means that values female will be false. All right, and let's go ahead and print that out. Okay, so we'll just add values. Well, we'll just add gender, the gender variable onto the end of this. All right, so we've got that. Cool. Okay, let's go ahead and run that. So let's exit out of this one right here. Let's exit. That's something we need to fix. And let's just exit out. We'll come back to fixing the exit button because that doesn't seem to work. All right. So let's enter a myth. Let's enter female. And let's enter Tehran. Reserve that ticket. Okay, we got an error right here. Ah, okay. I didn't type in male and female correctly. See, the key right here had the 2 dashes, which I forgot to enter. So what I need to do is I need to do this. Yeah, that's what I need to do. All right, so let's give that another try. Okay, cool. So we've got a myth, we've got male, and we've got Tehran. Okay, a myth, Tehran, male. Cool, good to go. And this exit button's not working. So, see what let's take a look at our code and see what the problem could be. Well, I mean, one quick fix could just be SG button, and then we could just create a button called exit, right? And then I think we could probably just change this. So let's just give that a try and see whether that works or not. Can we just exit? Okay, and that lets us do it. So what we did is right here we're checking if the event is any one of these two things, and if it is, then we're closing. We're breaking this loop that's constantly checking the data and the events in the window, and then we're going to window.close and closing it. So what I did is I just took the name of the button, which was exit, that string, and I just put it right here. It's kind of similar to how here we checked if event was equal to reserved ticket, and then if someone clicked reserved ticket, then we execute this code. It's the same idea. Someone's clicking exit, and we're just executing this code instead in an if statement. So what when closed is right here is that's just, so if you do this, sg.winClose is just this one right here. So that's this, right? So it looks like we fixed that. One last thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna so right now I'm not really showing all of the information in the reservation, and it also doesn't look very nice. So what I did, I'm not gonna go through running this whole function because it's really just formatting strings. All I'll kind of walk through what it is, but I created a function called format input information. All right. So it's this huge function right here. I mean, it's not complicated. It's just long because we have so many inputs. So I put that right here. And what this does is this takes in a variable called values. Okay. What that means is that right here, what I'm basically doing is I'm taking all the information from our input. So I'm taking name, I'm taking passport number, I'm taking female, I'm taking the gender, taking the departure time, arrival, destination, and I'm all just presenting it. I'm putting it into one string that's formatted in a way that's easy to read and just prettier. I'm using this new line character here to make sure that each of these are on separate lines. And I'm using the values variable. Let's talk about what this values is. So right here, we used values to access all the information from our inputs up here. So from our keys up here. So key passport number, key departure, all of this is accessed through values. So they all become array elements, or they all become elements in the, well, really it's a dictionary called values in this data structure right here. So instead of just printing them out individually, what we're gonna do is we're gonna hand them, we're gonna take values and we're just gonna put that in a function, all right? So we're just gonna say, name of our function up here was, just exit out of this for now, was format input information, all right? Actually, let's just get rid of, we don't really need this right now either because that's going to be done for us. So just backspace that. So just so you can kind of see everything. So right here we have an array called format input information. We're taking in values. We're creating a variable called information, and then all the data is going to be stored in one big string that is assigned to information. So right here, for example, we formatted a line with the name, and then we just added that to this variable information. So all of this is going to get added to information, and we're going to return that at the end right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this values, and we're going to do format input information. Values. So we're taking all of this data, putting it into this function, and then the function is getting all of the data from our inputs like that. It's adding it to one big string, and then its output, it's returning that string to us. So let's just see what that looks like. Hopefully there aren't any errors. Okay, let's run that. Looks so far so good. Enter omit. Just fill out the whole thing. It's not my real passport number. Date of departure. Ooh, we got a problem right here. Okay. See right here? It says problem finding your key. Closest match, departure. So what I probably did is I just missed a dash right here. So let's kill the application and let's go back and see where I made that mistake. So looks like that is, oh, up here, right here for target. Anything else? All right, let's go ahead and run that again. Let's go ahead and run that again. It looks good. Okay. So you've got this. Let's enter a myth. Let's enter date of departure. Enter a calendar, or enter a time and date. We're just gonna do that, and then let's go to Havana. Reserve ticket, and see how nicely formatted it all is. Like we've got name, passport number, gender, departure, arrival time, and destination. So that's pretty much it. This code will be online as well, so you can look over it. But really, the major objective of this tutorial was just for you to see a more complex UI and to see different ways you can allow the user to input information. And then just give another example of handling that user information in the event loop and using a function, all right? So what you'll do for homework is you will create a similarly complex UI using what you've learned in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. See you next time.